All right, guys. So I have some amazing news for you guys today. ChatGPT API has been released. And what this means is that you can leverage this technology in any of your apps very easily. And so in today's video, I'm going to be showing you the API. I'm going to be showing you how you can connect to this API. I'm going to show you how you can build apps around this API. And then I'm also going to be showing you a full working proof of concept app that leverages this API and builds a chatbot exactly like you see on the website. Now, before we begin, as always, all the apps that I'm going to be showing you in today's video are going to be available to view and or clone from my Patreon page, which you're going to see a link to in the description below. All right, so here we are on OpenAI's website, and this is one of their blog articles, and it says, introducing ChatGPT and Whisper APIs. Developers can now integrate ChatGPT and Whisper models into their apps and products through our API, and you can kind of read about it, right? And they have some case studies of different apps and startups that are kind of using it. But a couple of very important points here are it's released. It's called GPT 3.5 Turbo. Okay, so it's not GPT 3 as was before, and it's the same model used in the ChatGPT product. It's priced at 0.002 cents, $0.002 per 1,000 tokens. So that's less than like a cent, which is actually 10 times cheaper than our existing GPT 3.5 models. Okay, so this is a big one. It's very cheap, and it's amazingly cheap. It's very affordable. And so they have a sample request and a sample response. Okay, this is kind of how it looks. And we're going to talk about all that in just a second. And there's also the Whisper API, which I'm going to cover in a separate video in the future. This is also amazing news. And so if you head over to one of their pages on their API site, you're going to see full instructions and full documentations on how you can use this functionality in your apps. Okay, so the most important thing to understand here is you can also use this new model in place of the old one. And so what this means is that you can use it how you were using GPT-3, even if you're not building like a chatbot. Of course, if you're building a chatbot, you want to be using this model, but pretty much for all purposes, when it comes to GPT, OpenAI, you want to be using this new model. And so here they have a sample request. Okay, they have a model. You have to specify a model, and you have to specify messages with different settings. And the main difference with this request here is that before you had to specify like temperature and all of these other parameters. Now you do not. The only thing you have to specify is the name of the model, which is this model right here, and the messages. Okay, so if we scroll down, you will see that you have a couple of messages that you need to specify. And so you have the system message, which is like, you could say something, you're a helpful assistant. Okay, and this message is optional. Okay, you can include it, you can not include it, you can include it as your first message here. You can skip it. Okay, I'm actually skipping it because I don't feel it's important for what I'm doing. But the next ones are very important. These are the messages you need to understand, and you need to include them correctly. Okay, so we have role user, and this is you asking the bot a question, and then the bot responds, and then you may ask a follow-up question. And so when you're sending requests, you have to keep track of the previous questions as well as the previous responses. Okay, the system is not going to do it for you. This is very important to understand. Okay, so you can send the system or you can skip it, but this is going to be your first message here, right? You're going to ask who won the World Series in 2020, and then you get a response. Okay, and the response is going to be a single message. You're not going to get all of these things. This is what you are essentially crafting to send. Okay, so I'm going to show you exactly how it works, but essentially this is the format of the messages. Obviously the initial message is going to be this, and once you have a response, if you want to send a follow-up question, you're going to be sending all of this. And so here's a couple of sample requests. Translate the following English text into French. and there's some text, and this is how the initial request would look like. Role system content, right? You can skip that if you want. And this is your message, okay? Or you can just have this one message, okay? So let me show you how a sample request looks like, okay? But before you can actually send this request, you need to head over to API keys, right? I'm on platform.openai.com/account /API dash keys, and you need to get your API key. Okay, so I already have my keys. I got my keys. You need to get your own keys, obviously, right? And once you have that, let me show you how a sample response looks like. Okay, so here I'm using a basic post get HTTP request client. Okay, and so this is my request right here. So these are the headers that I'm sending, right? I'm sending the authorization, which is the bearer, and the key that I have. Plus, I'm sending content type application JSON because we are sending a JSON request, okay? So we have this headers here. And then in the body, I'm specifying the model, and then I'm specifying the messages. And obviously this messages, it's gonna grow as you're gonna continue the conversation. Very, very important to understand. This is our initial message here, right? So as you can see, this is a JSON format. And if you are seeing like a JSON format or hearing about JSON for the first time, I urge you to learn more about it. This is very, very important. And you're going to be using this all the time when you're building no-code apps. Okay, so this right here is essentially, it's like a wrapper, right? It's an object, these curly braces. And if you have these square brackets, it wraps around an array. So in this case, messages is an array of objects, and this is an individual object with a role field and a content field, so like two fields. Okay, and that's how it's going to look like. It's going to be basically an array of objects as you are keeping track of all the messages that you send. Now if I execute this request, I should get a response. So this is my response, and as you can see, I'm getting a response. The role is assistant and the content is Brasilia. Okay, now, let's say I want to ask a follow-up question. Well, guess what? I need to take this and I need to send another question, okay? And so if I want to send a follow-up question, I need to add the response that I'm getting, and I need to specify the role assistant. And then I need to ask the actual follow-up question, okay? So as you can see, I'm asking how many people live there, and I'm not specifying the country anymore because it understands the context now. And so this is a nice test to make sure it understands that, we were talking about Brazil initially, right? So I can send this second request, and as you can see, I'm getting a response. As of 2021, the estimated population of Brasilia is approximately 3.1 million people, okay? And so if I want to follow up, guess what? I need to copy this assistant here. I need to create another response here, another element inside of this messages array, and I need to paste that. Okay, I need to paste that right here, and that way it has context of population. And then I can have another question. I can just paste this, and I can say is the population growing, or something like this. You guys get the picture, right? I have the initial response, I have the initial request, I have the response, I have the second request, I have the response, and I have the third request. So we're going to send this, and so we're going to execute this request right here, and there we see the response. Okay, overall the population of Brasilia has been growing steadily, etc., etc. And so you can take that response, put it back, and then send another request. And so that is how you send your responses, okay? And so now that you've seen how to do it, let me go ahead and show you the proof of concept app that I built using Flutterflow, which is my favorite no-code build. And so here's the app. And before I show you how I build this app, let's go ahead and run it first so that you guys can see how it works. We are gonna create a test environment real quick. All right, so here's the app. And as you can see, the app is built in the style of a typical messenger. So something like WhatsApp, iMessage, or Telegram, in the sense that we have the title here, and then we're gonna have our various chats. So all you have to do is create a new chat by clicking this button here. It creates a new chat, and now you can interact with ChatGPT using an API. So let's say we ask the same question: what is the capital of, let's say we say Portugal. We're gonna send that. We see the message right here and we get a response. The capital of Portugal is Lisbon. And so now we can ask a follow-up question, and we can ask it in the style that it understands the context. So we can say, what is the population? And it tells us as of 2021, the estimated population of Portugal is around 10.3 million people. And so as you can see, it wouldn't have been able to answer that if it didn't know the context of what we are talking about, right? It needs to know the population. It needs to know that we're referring to Portugal. And the reason it understands the context is because we are sending previous data. And so we can keep talking to it. We can say, what is the second largest city? Okay. And we're not talking about the name of the country. We are just talking to it with the understanding that it knows the context. Okay. We're going to send. There you go. The second largest city in Portugal is Porto. And then you can, you can keep talking to it. What is the third largest, okay. And there you have it. And so as you can see, it works really, really nice. And we can go back and we see the chat, and we can start a new conversation, right? We can just come here and say, tell me something about, I don't know, Costa Rica. Okay, there you have it. Okay, a little summary of Costa Rica, and then we can keep talking to it. And if you want, you can come back and you can click on this, and you're going to be back inside that Portugal thread, and you can continue this conversation. So it supports multiple conversations, and it also supports context, because we keep sending the previous responses and the previous questions. So nice app. You can obviously improve it. You can add a bunch of new features, but it's an awesome starting point. Okay, so now that you've seen the app, let's go ahead and jump into Flutterflow, and I can kind of talk to you guys about how to build it correctly. Okay, there's lots of things you guys need to understand. So here we are back inside of the app, and the first thing I want to show you is our database, right? We're using Firestore DB to store things, and we are using users, right? Because we're doing authentication. We don't want to show, all the threads to everybody, right? They're going to be filtered by the users, the user who owns it. And then we have chats, okay? Very, very simple. We have the timestamp of the last message. We have the last message. We have the user ID and the user who's actually talking, right? Then we have the messages sub collection, right? This is the sub collection that stores messages, okay? So we're storing all the messages, as well as our messages, as well as the messages we're getting back from ChatGPT. So we have the message, we have the timestamp, and we have the user. And in the case of us, it's going to be the display user from the Firestore DB, from the authentication. In the case of ChatGPT, just going to be ChatGPT. I have this one, but we don't really need that, so we can delete this. Next, I want to show you the pages that we're working with. Okay, so we have the main chats page. Okay, and so the things you have to know about this page are, well, we have this button here that creates a new chat. It has two actions. We're doing a backend call to our database, and we're essentially creating a new chat. And then we are redirecting to the messages page with the chat ID. Okay, so that's very, very simple, but very, very standard kind of behavior. You create a new chat record, and then you redirect by passing the reference to the chat document to the next page. And we are also displaying our existing chats here. Okay, so this is this chat list. We have a backend query where we're doing chats, list of documents, and we're filtering them by our user record. We're filtering them by the UID, right? So if I'm looking at this and I'm logged in as myself, I'm just going to see my chats that are, have to do with me, right? My own chat. And I can also click on this, and that's going to redirect to that specific chat. So kind of something like this, except we're not creating a new chat. We are redirecting to to an existing chat. The next thing I want to show you is the chat messages. Okay, so this is kind of the main logic here, right? And so what's happening here? Well, what's happening is that we have, first of all, we have this general chat messages here, and if you come over here, what we're doing is we're just pulling a list of documents for messages, and we need that because we need to pass that data to the API call in order to collect all that data. So we're basically pulling all the messages, all the previous messages before this new message, right? All the old messages, we're pulling it right from the top, right? Like right from the beginning. And here we have a list view, and we're basically listing the messages, but we're doing something interesting here. We have a stack, and we are displaying we have a stack of rows, and depending on if it's going to be my message or the bot's message, we're going to display it either on the right hand side or the left hand side. So if it's my message, we're going to display it on the right hand side. If it's the bot's message, we are going to display it on the left hand side. This is kind of standard behavior with, pretty much all the messaging clients, at least the ones I know, right? So we have row other, which is the other message, right? You can't see it right now because it's behind this row, but essentially, as you can see, it's aligned left. Okay. And, we're basically displaying it here, text right. This is our message. And then we have the relative time, when was that message received? And here we're actually doing conditional visibility. User is not displaying them. So it's not us essentially. And then the same thing we're doing for this other one, except this one is user is us. Next, we have the chat button right here, right? This is a lot of things are happening here. So if we open this up, when you send a message, okay, when you send a message, we need to create a new message document in that sub collection, right? And this is a chat ref sub collection. Okay, this is the message that we sent, right? So we immediately, create a document for it. And the next thing we need to do is we need to make a backend API call to ChatGPT, right? And let me show you the call. So if we edit this API call, we have this one API call. It's a post request. This is the URL. And I got it from, this main page right here. This is that URL right here. And we have the headers, application JSON, and my token here, my authorization token. And then we also have the variables, right? So we have messages. Messages is a string that we're going to be passing. These are previous messages, the old messages, okay? And then we have the body, and the body is simple. We specify the model and we specify the messages. And so if we do a response and test over here, we can essentially send a sample messages. And as you can see, the messages is already formatted as a JSON. Okay, so that's what the format it's expecting. So here I have role user and content was the capital of Brazil. This is a sample test message, and we can do a test API call. And as you can see, we're getting back a response. And when you get back a response, you want to click on recommended, and you want to pick it right here. Okay, you want to select this one right here, right? Because you want to capture this response, because we're gonna need it, to display it to the user, as well as to say for the subsequent responses. Okay, so that's our API call that we have. We go back to the button right here. Once we execute that API call, what we're doing here is we have a function, and if we have previous messages, we need to send those messages as well. So this is what this custom function is doing. It's called generate messages. And if we open it up, this function takes two parameters, okay? It takes a list of document messages. These are messages straight from the database, okay? As well as it takes this new message that we just sent, okay? Because we need to divide it. When you have the old messages in the database, but we have a new message that we just sent, okay? And this is this input message. And if I show you the function, what this function is doing is that it accepts a list of messages which are directly passed from the database. And then we have the second argument, new message. And what I'm doing is I'm basically cycling through all the messages in the database, and I'm creating a new array of objects. Remember, because we need to pass an array of objects. You see, the name of the array is messages, but this is what we need to pass. This thing that I have highlighted here, this is what I need to pass, okay? And so this is what this function is doing. We have an empty list, and then I'm cycling through the elements in the database, and I'm adding it one by one, and I'm checking, is the user, the user field in the message, is it ChatGPT? Then we need to set it as an assistant. If it's not, we're going to set it as a user, and then I'm basically specifying the message. And then at the end, once I included all the old messages, I also include the new messages with the role of user. So I'm saying, once this is done, I also add a new message. Role is user, content is new message. And then I need to do a JSON encode, because this is, it's expecting a JSON, right? If you're doing anything related to APIs, it expects a JSON request, JSON format. So I'm doing JSON encode, and it nicely encodes it. And the resulting message looks something like this. Let me show you. It looks exactly like this, right? So if we come over here to our API call, this is what the message looks like. This is kind of what it looks like. And obviously I can encode it myself, but there's a function that does it. It's a lot easier. It would have been a pain to do it myself, but this is what the function expects, right? Because if we come over here, you see this is a JSON request. This is JSON form. And so once we've done that, right? So if we open this back up again, we are checking if it succeeded or not. So this is kind of for debugging, but it's also important in the app. If it's true, we do a bunch of things. If it's false, we show a snack bar and we display the message. Now, this is for my own debugging. I just wanted to make sure that I'm not getting any errors. In your production app, you're basically going to do something like, there was an error, contact so and so. You're not going to display the error message, right? If it's successful, and typically it's going to be successful because everything works here, right? We're going to create a new message. Okay, we're gonna get a response, and we're gonna create a new message. Now, this is important. Before, if you were creating multiple messages, remember we created a message here and we created another message. Flutterflow required they were not able to do it on the same collection. Looks like that has been fixed, because before, if you've seen my previous videos, I actually created a Firebase function that essentially I was saving messages in another collection, and then I was duplicating in the previous collection. Only if you've seen my previous videos. If you have not, do not worry about it. But it makes your life a lot easier. So this is a really nice thing. So I'm creating a new message. I am doing a code expression on the response, right? So here I have a response, which is this is the JSON body I get back, and I have this response that I configured in the API call. And then I'm also doing a trim, because I need to trim, because the response I'm getting, it has like a bunch of spaces and a bunch of things. I just want the string. I just want that word, the response. So that is why I have a code expression. And then I'm also specifying the current sign, as well as the user. I'm just setting it to ChatGPT. And that way we can just, display it over there, right? Just ChatGPT. And I'm also updating the couple of things on the main chat collection, right? Because that is the stuff that's displayed on the main page, right? And so things like last message, as well as the timestamp, I'm also updating that because we have a new message that went in. We need to update the parent chat collection. And then last but not least, I'm clearing this input field. And that's pretty much it. And as a result, you have a basic chat client. You have a client that you can communicate. You have multiple chats that you can have, just exactly like the case with the web client, right? The client that we are all familiar with. And obviously, you can take it further. You can do amazing things with it, with this app. But beyond that, you can obviously you can include it inside an app that you're building. So you don't have to build this client, right? This standalone app, in other words. You can include this functionality in pretty much any app, right? So there's, I'm using Notion a lot, and Notion has an AI client that uses GPT, right? And so they're embedding the functionality inside. And so millions and millions of things that you can do with it now that we have an official API. Before we didn't. Now we have an official API, and you can build all kinds of amazing apps using this functionality. All right. And so if you're watching this video and you're thinking to yourself, this is awesome, I want to maybe build a standalone chat GPT client, maybe a messenger, maybe some kind of a bot, a chat bot, or some kind of a customer service bot, or you name it, where I want to leverage this and embed this functionality into another app I'm building, maybe a different app that I'm building, then you definitely want to view and or clone the app that I'm building. And you can do that by joining my Patreon community. When you do join, not only will you get access to this app, not only will you be able to view and or clone this app, but you will also be able to view and or clone all my other apps that I built on this channel. And not only that, but you'll get access to extra content such as Q&As, live streams, behind the scenes content, as well as my supporter exclusive, Patreon exclusive masterclass series, where we do deep dives on specific topics that the community votes on. So you're going to get a ton of extra content, and above all, you're going to be supporting this channel and supporting my work. So if you are watching this and you're thinking to yourself, I want to play around with this, I want to kind of do a couple of things with it, I want to see how it works, I want to change some things, you definitely want to check out my Patreon community. We got an amazing community. and consider becoming a member. Now, if you enjoyed this video and you want to see other videos that talk about, AI stuff and kind of building these chat GPT-3 apps, then you want to definitely check out the video that you're seeing on the screen right now. That is an awesome video that's going to help you to better grasp how to build apps that leverage this amazing AI functionality.